Today I'm going to start painting some squid hoppers. One of the things I've decided to do is I want to remove the bottom of the bases where you can see things like it looks like smoke or mushrooms and things like that, and I want to give it a more futuristic look. So instead of the squids bouncing off of those things, it's going to be on pieces of machinery instead. I've also decided that I want to give them the alternative weapons instead of the weapons you can see on the picture here, and I'm planning on painting the squids in different colours as opposed to them all being one colour, so they should stand out when I've finished and look quite different. These are the parts that are left over. So as an example, some mushrooms here, and there's even some like this where you've actually got a skull on there, and they won't go to waste. I'll end up using them on some different miniatures somewhere else, so I'll find something interesting to use them for. So these are the parts I'm going to use for the basis for the squids to sit on to help give that elevation. Some of the parts are quite easy, like that. There's two pieces, put them together, glue it onto the base. Some of the other pieces like this, for example, once the two have been glued together, give a nice elevation there. Again, this is another piece where I'm planning on putting the two together. So at the top, you end up with two pieces sticking up, so the squid can sit on the top of those. And I was thinking I could easily glue it onto the bottom of this, which will then be on the base. This is actually a laser-based weapon. So there's a few bits there just to try and add a bit of character to the bottom of the bases, and it helps to give that impression of the squid being off the ground. Here you can see there's 5 variants for the body and the legs that go together. At the moment I haven't quite glued them all together, but the reason why is I wanted to point out that when you look at the leg that attaches to the lower base, some of the legs are attached at the front of the foot, like that one, and some of them, like this one, there's the front of the foot. Some of them are attached more at the back of the foot. That's the front of the foot. I've arranged the miniatures in regards to the main body of the squid. For example, face. This would be the inside of the mouth, and then this is the person who'll be riding it. The reason why I do this is it's surprising how often people will buy a box of miniatures and they just do exactly what the instructions say without actually looking at things like the posture or the pose of the miniature, and putting a little bit of time into it and looking at what will go with what. It's surprising how extra you can improve the look of the miniature. Also, I do this because I like to try and make sure that I don't have two parts exactly the same. So for example, this one and this one's actually got the same body, but it will have two different heads. Well, these two are the same body, but again, it'll end up with two different heads, or the mount will be different, to try and keep them looking as different as possible. I've finished the assembly of the miniatures. The actual front faces of the squids aren't actually glued in, so they can still come off. The reason why I've done this is more obvious with some of the miniatures than others, but they've got quite large mouths and you're not easily going to go and get in there with the paintbrush. So by taking it off, makes it a lot easier for me to paint. I normally like to stick to a certain set of rules with a certain group of miniatures. So for example, if I'm painting the armour a certain colour, I like to stick with that throughout the entire collection. With these miniatures, however, I feel there's a need to do things a little bit different, because there's not that much armour on them, and therefore the clothes parts of the miniatures, the cloth areas, where I've picked a brown colour scheme for the rest of the army, with these I'm going to do the colour scheme for the clothes in yellow, and that way it will help to tie them in with the rest of the army by giving more yellow. So the yellow is going to be on the cloth and the armour. Also with the actual squids themselves, I'm going to give them loads of different colours instead of doing them all in one colour, where normally I would tend to try and keep them all one colour to try and give unity to the squad. But I think it'll make them look a lot more fun by giving them loads of different colours. I don't want to use certain colours. I don't want to use black or white, for example, because I tend to think of them more as shades rather than colours. I don't want to paint them yellow, because obviously there's going to be the yellow on the cloth and the armour for the mount, so it doesn't seem practical to do it on the squids as well. I don't want to do them green, because obviously you've got the green for the skin for the goblins. So the colours I'm thinking I'm most likely using are red, orange, blue, purple and turquoise. But that gives me 5 colours with 10 models. That's two each of each colour, and it should look great. I've started off with a white undercoat, and the front of the face is separate from the miniature at the moment. I've got a pink painted for the gums and the inside of the mouth. The reason why I've chosen a bright pink is I know that later on when I get to painting the teeth are actually going to be quite dark. So the brightness of the pink will give a nice contrast to the effects of the teeth. And when the two are put together, the pink will actually give a nice background to the darkness of the teeth at the front to make it stand out. I'm now going to reapply the pink. This is actually the third coat of the pink. The reason why is this particular paint is a bit on the thin side, so it took a couple of coats to build it up. But the third coat is more a case of being used so you can blend a bit of white into it to bring certain parts out. Now, because this is the inside of the mouth, the truth is that you're going to be somewhat limited to how much of it you're actually going to see because of the teeth. But the more detail you can put in, the more it helps. Now we need to do the same. I've actually painted the inside of the mouth as well, but I don't think you need to go to the point of doing the highlights. But I wanted to make sure that if you see the mouth from different angles, you're not going to see the inside of the mouth and then say to yourself, I can see areas that haven't been painted. You'll probably notice that I'm using two different brushes here. One is for the application of the primary colour, your base colour, and the second one is used so I can put more finer details in. So even now you can see how there's a little bit of detail starting to come into the miniature when you're looking down there into the mouth. But when the teeth are actually done and finished, that's when you'll really notice the difference of why I'm using this bright pink. I've mixed the ratio of 2 pots water to 1 part red paint. As you can see, can you see that there? That moves around quite easily. And I want to apply this now to the pink. As you can see there, the higher areas where it was white has now gone to a pink, and the deeper areas have now got bits of red in them to give it a nice bit of texture. Now the reds are time to dry. I'm going to use some Usher bone for the teeth. You're going to want to paint the teeth on the inside and the outside, because as you can see straight through. You might only need one coat of cream for the teeth, but if you haven't got a good base coat, then apply a second coat afterwards. Agrax Earthshade is the next coat. Use this to cover all over the teeth. And you want it quite dark, because I'm aiming for quite a filthy look. After all, they're not likely to clean their teeth, so over time they're going to get really dirty. Again, I would suggest you paint them on the inside as well. Use your own discretion, but you may want to put a second coat of this on, just to make them look that bit darker. I want to apply one last stage on the teeth, so I'm using Usher by Bone and a white paint. And what I want to do here is, sometimes when you look at teeth, light reflects off the teeth and it gives you this little spot where the light's hitting the teeth. You don't want to go too over the top with this, no more than 2 or 3 of them on a mouth, even a big mouth like this, because if you do too many of them it just doesn't look right. But pick a few spots. Really you want to let the first coat dry, but yeah. See, if you do too many, it just makes it look too weird, but the odd little one here and there looks quite nice. A red base coat to get this one started, and now basically I'll reapply the red base coat to a small area at a time. And then I'm applying Usher by Bone and reapplying Usher by Bone to create highlighted areas. The reason why I'm using this colour instead of using a yellow, for example, is I want it to keep looking red, and if you use yellow you're going to end up with it looking orange. It's not quite finished, but you get to see it, get to see roughly where I'm going. So for the orange, I'm just using an orange and then a yellow to start off. I'm using a different miniature just to show you the next coat, because obviously the last miniature I just used needs time to dry. But as you can see, it's a bit too bright in some areas. So I can't even pronounce this. Fergan orange. I'm just going to put a wash of that over it, and a quick wash will take some of the brightness out in the bright areas, and it'll also help to give a bit of contrast into the darker areas. Now, you probably noticed I didn't do this with the red, but it really does come down to the colours you're using, and obviously the end result you want. But when that's dry, in the deep areas it make them just a little bit darker, and the lighter areas I've already painted, it just tones them down just a little bit. For the purple, I'm using these two colours. I'll point out the best two colours to use with purple, if you want to highlight purple, is either pink or cream. Problem is with pink is you will end up with it looking pink, which I don't want. So cream will make it look lighter, but it takes a very small amount to make a very big difference. So all I'm doing here now is just putting a wash on with a purple, which will help to make the dark areas darker. And it helps to tie in those light colours. For the blue squids, I'm starting with this as the base colour, and this is what I'm using for the highlight. highlight stage with this, compared to say the purple, isn't very strong. So where with the purple you use a very small amount and you get a very quick highlight and a very prominent highlight. With this, not so much. But then, because this is turquoise, you don't want the highlight being overly blue anyway, because turquoise is a combination of blue and green. So you don't want it to look too blue. Ultimately, you don't want it to look too green either. So my plan is to use a blue for the highlight, and then afterwards we're going to use a bit of green. For my last coat on this, the turquoise, I'm going to use a green wash. For some of these models, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I want to make it look like there's some saliva coming out of their mouths. So first off, you need some water effect. I started off initially by applying some water effect on a back of a plate. And once I applied the drop, what I did then is I spread it out. I spread it out via using a cocktail stick, so I can get several pieces like this. And then you have to slowly ply them off, because it will stick. Once you've plied it off, pick one you want. Make sure you create more than you're actually going to use in the first place, because some of them you might not want to use anyway. But once you decide the one you want to cut it off. There you go, it's a bit hard to see, but once you cut it off, you then want to go back to getting some of the water effect. Decide the model you want to apply it onto. When it's dry, you may want to get a little bit more water effect. Add it onto the end, just to thicken it out a bit. This technique can also be used for other things. So for example, water dripping off a feet, or water dripping off guttering of a house. So it's another way of being creative and adding that little bit of extra detail.